Welcome everybody. My name is Patrick Malone. I'm the director of the Key Executive Leadership Program. I want to welcome you all to our panel discussion today. I'm just going to make a few opening comments and then I'm going to introduce all of our panelists. And I'm just going to tell you I'm going to call them out and let them introduce themselves because they can speak much better about themselves than I can. Wonderful folks. We're so glad they're with us today. Leading in the public service is a challenge. In fact, this morning I had the honor of interviewing the administrator of TSA, and we were talking about the challenges of leading in the public service. And Administrator Pekoski has actually been in both worlds. He's been in the private sector and in the public service as well. And we talked about how amazingly difficult and challenging it can be. One of the things that we kind of came to was that COVID has kind of uncovered some amazing leadership as well, in terms of our ability to be innovative and creative in the way that we set the right conditions and build cultures for success. We have a panel today to talk about career development and success and how they've kind of gotten to where they are. And I'm not going to talk any longer. I'm going to have them introduce themselves because I'm looking really forward to this discussion, and I welcome everyone that joined. I will be monitoring the chat room very closely. So please, by all means, if you don't want to speak up and ask a question of any of our panelists, feel free to send a chat and I will grab that chat and bring it up as well. Looking forward to a great discussion today. With that, I'd like to just welcome all of our panelists today. So Antony Militello, Christine Antony, Stephanie Hull, and Russell Robinson. Tony, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Great, Patrick. Thanks. As Patrick mentioned, my name is Tony Militello. I'm a graduate of the Key MPA program, Key 32. So about 10 years ago, we started in the spring and then matriculated through 2007 and finished through the end of 2007 in December, and then walked with the graduating class in the spring of 2008. Currently serve on the Secretary of the Navy staff as a Director of Safety and Occupational Health, and been this year 25 years as a career federal civil servant, and worked for the Department of the Navy for 23 years and the General Services Administration in the National Capital Region for a couple of years. Again, I've had a privilege of working in field offices and middle management and higher headquarters. Worked in the United States as well as in Europe for several years. And upon returning from a 5-year stint in Naples, Italy, which was again a growth opportunity in and of itself, came back and really had an opportunity to grow as a leader within the federal government, and had an anticipation of being a career federal civil servant, and thought, there is something that I need that will help kind of catapult me to the next level of management and strategic leadership within the federal sector. Several colleagues of mine whom I greatly admired and respected were current students in and graduates of the Key MPA program, and they recommended it. And it was an investment of time and energy and resources and sleepless nights that can't possibly regret. Again, it was time very well spent. The cohort that we developed back then in 2007, many of us are still friends and colleagues today, continue to chat and communicate on a regular basis to become members of, again, a growing set and cadre of graduates from the program. And so we'll hear a little bit more later, but again, it's been 12 years since graduation, but it's been a great opportunity, and have been able to use the things that we learned there, have been able to use them really on a day-to-day basis. And again, enjoy staying connected with the American University and the Key MPA program. And again, the things that it has to offer, not just while in school, which you'll hear others of the panelists mention their experiences while in school, but again, from the past decade, have been able to stay connected and really, again, continue to stay enlightened and informed and challenged through the offerings and kind of extracurricular activities that the Key program has to offer. So,
Tony, thank you so much. I can't believe 25 years. Where did the time go? Oh my gracious. Amazing. Thank you so much. Let's move to Christine. Christine, tell us a little about yourself.
Good afternoon, everybody. And hi, I'm Christine Antony. I am currently a student in the Key MPA program. We're cohort Key 54. And this marks a transition for me, a career transition. I was an engineer. My undergrad was in engineering. I graduated a while ago, let's just say that. And then I was in the private sector for a bit, worked for the Navy for a little bit, about over a decade, and then went to the private sector again. Now here I am doing my career transition from engineering. What I'll stop with that for an introduction. How's that?
That sounds great, Christine. Thank you.
All
I
right.
love this. I love this Navy theme I'm seeing. This is fantastic. Stephanie, how about you?
I've got nothing Navy. I'm Stephanie Hall. I currently work for U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. I'm a supervisory management and program analyst. I'm a graduate of Key 53, so I just graduated this past May, sort of. We didn't get to walk, but hopefully maybe this winter we will. Prior to USCIS, I worked for TSA for 13 years in a myriad of positions covering performance management, threat and vulnerability mitigation. And a really long time ago, I actually started my federal career about 15 years ago, working at the airport as a screening officer. So I've come a long way in my 15 years. And I have to say that I'll throw a little pitch in here, but the KEY program was literally life-changing. So stay tuned because there's a lot of good information here.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Wonderful to see you. Great to hear from you. And last but not least, my dear friend and colleague and Dallas Cowboy fan, Russell Robinson. Let's hear from you, Russell.
Hey, so I'm Russell Robinson. Unlike Naples, Italy, some of my most exciting work was at Springfield, Virginia. Shout out to Mike's American. I want to echo what Christine and Stephanie said about the KEY MPA program. While Christine is in a career transition, I use KEY to do a career transition. And I'm an advocate for the KEY program. So anytime they give me an opportunity to speak, I do. Currently, I work for the Program Support Center, which is a component of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. You may have heard of us. We may have been in the news over the past 6 or 7 months. In addition, I'm an employee engagement, employee voice and change management researcher. I'm on LLC, Amplified Research and Consulting. I'm also an adjunct professor at the University of Louisville, where I teach a grad level online class. The most important job is in the wellness and suicide prevention. And there I work with Patrick when the Dallas Cowboys lose their last game every year, and he realizes they haven't made the playoffs. Hail to the Washington football team. Oh, one last thing. Key cohort 43, 2011 to 2013. We were a family as a cohort, and we're still tight as a cohort. So I'm done, Patrick.
No doubt about that. Hey, Russell, you know what? I'm not going to leave you. I'm actually going to pose the first question to you. And, you know, one of the things that I hope that everybody takes from this really terrific panel, and I mean, if you can feel love, is because it's there. I mean, this is the folks that come through the program, and we stay in touch, and we love to see the success and kind of how their careers have developed. And I hope that everyone on the line will, you know, listen very closely to what you're hearing about how these individuals apply, you know, how they tackle their careers, how they grew, and kind of what challenges they're facing. Russell, I'd like to start with you. I mean, so, you know, we talk a lot together and stay in touch really often. And I know that you had, I think the first conversation you and I had was when I first came to the KEY program, and I was shopping, and I was pushing my shopping cart in the Giant, and the phone rang, and it was you. And we talked about action learning, and we talked about kind of the applicability of using, you know, the action learning topic and what you did in the class. How is that? How were you able to use that in the workplace? What are some of the things, the highlights and lowlights of kind of where you've gone that you'd like to share with everyone?
So I started the KEY journey. I worked for a National Geospatial Intelligence Agency in Springfield, Virginia. I did not have the support of my leadership. And toward the end of the program, through a KEY classmate, I got a job within 1 week at the VA. And I ended up having to change my capstone topics, hence the frantic call to Patrick. And what ended up happening was where I worked, the Human Resources Office within the VA had been subject to an IG report for conference misspending. And I wanted to do a capstone where we addressed the morale of HR based on this IG report. And there was one person in the report, you can Google her name now, and there's everything she was accused of doing. We pulled some other people. And what I found was, we were actually able to start from saying, well, this investigation caused low morale. And through our conversation, we went back to actually, it was a leadership change 3 years prior that caused low morale. What I learned from it was, one, my capstone group became its own cohort within the VA. So once we were done, whenever one of us were working on a project, we pulled each other in. We based everything on Marilee Adams' book, Change Your Question, Change Your Life. And I thought about this last night, what I had to do as the leader, because I had people who were in the Washington Post every day and in newspapers, I had to be vulnerable myself. So when we started our conversation, I started talking about some of the struggles I had with my daughter, and that opened things up. And when you look at how I use it today, so we had a fantastic time. We got to a point where we were vulnerable, we were empathetic, we made human connections, and we met people where they are, which, Patrick, I know, as you know, that's part of the key of how leaders have gotten through 2020. When you're dealing with COVID, when you're dealing with the social justice issues we've got going on, when you're talking about we're in a highly politicized environment. After I left American, I went to GW and got my doctorate in human organizational learning. And my focus is, how do you create a voice culture to foster employee engagement and improve the employee's experience? And I thought about it last night, and what it really is what I said. How do you create an environment where there's vulnerability, empathy, emotional intelligence, connection, meeting people where they are? So as I thought about this last night, I realized, and it hadn't hit me before, this work I did in 2012 was so much of a catalyst towards bringing me to where I am. Lastly, as a career transition, when I was at NGA, somehow I navigated my career to where I was a budget analyst. Every day was 1,000 deaths. I worked for a murderer's row of leadership. I mean, if there was a fantasy basketball team for bad leadership, this team was like the Golden State Warriors 3 or 4 years ago. How they could just identify bad leaders was beyond me. But now I have a doctorate. I'm an organizational development thought leader. Key, if I could sum it up in one word, has helped me find purpose in my work role, which has had a tremendous cascade throughout my home life and my interaction with my friends. So that's it for me, Patrick.
Hey, thank you, Russ. Hey, before I'm going to go to Stephanie next, but before I do, Russ, I want to ask you a question. You know, you mentioned the word vulnerability several times in your discussion there, and I'm just curious. Could you kind of sum up for everyone what is vulnerability? How has that played a role in your success as a federal leader, as a researcher, as a scholar?
Well, I think it is part of meeting people where they are. So when I train our supervisors here, or they make hires, you know, you hear things like, well, we hired this person because we want them to be creative, we want them to be innovative, but they haven't created a culture where you can show vulnerability, where you can take risks, where you can fail and be confident, and you can be your authentic self. And the interesting thing is, one of my classmates at Key, and we're still friends now. I remember at the time of our capstone, hers went nothing like mine. And at her agency, there were trust issues. And she was like, well, I wasn't going to expose myself because I didn't want them to take advantage of me. And I was like, this is your project though. Like, you're the change agent, you're the catalyst. So if you're not going to be vulnerable, how can you expect other people to be vulnerable? Mm-hmm. Speaking to social justice, I have a friend who's an IO psychologist who works in a company where he's the only person of color. And he pushed for his leadership to address some of the social justice issues. Mm-hmm. And as I was prepping him for it, I was like, dude, you got to go all in. And he's like, well, I don't trust the people. And I said, well, then you're already starting off with a goal where there's not going to be trust. I said, you got to exhibit trust. You got to coach your CEO. If you're not going to do it, your CEO's got to go all in. If neither of you are going to go all in, then you're wasting people's time. Mm-hmm. So what I find is, by meeting people where they are, and this will be my last piece, once every 2 weeks, I'm Lucy Brown. I'm Lucy from Charlie Brown, where I have an open office and employees talk to me all the time. Whatever problem they've had, I've been in government 19 years. If this is engagement and this is disengagement, I've been everywhere. Mm-hmm. This week. But the first thing I got to do is show that empathy. Okay. I know what it's like when your career's in a rut and you're wasting time. Hey, I've been where you are. Sometimes I try to focus on how it impacts you. Sometimes it's like, hey, let me give you an example of what I did. And once I share some personal stuff about me they didn't know, then that's me setting the tone. Like, I need you to be vulnerable, because once you get that vulnerability from people as a team, that's where the magic happens, and you do more than go through the motions.
Hey, thank you, Russ. You know, I don't know about everybody else, but I can picture Russ's office, and he's got a little sign there that says psychiatric help 5 cents. So you've got people dropping nickels on your desk every time they come in, just like Lucy did, right?
I got Muhammad Ali, and I got Muhammad Ali up on the wall. That scares him enough.
I love that. Hey, Russ, thank you so much. And I want to remind everyone, please, if you have a question as you hear from our panelists, and you know, something strikes you, whether it's just, well, you know, one comment they said, or you know, one, maybe a place they mentioned or a person, feel free to chat directly with them or to chat with everyone on the call, and we'll just get the conversation going. With that said, I want to go to Stephanie for a moment. So Stephanie, you know, one of the things that Russ talked about, he talked about this turning point for him and kind of the balance. I'm wondering if you could kind of share what your perspective has been in terms of balancing career, balancing that with school, balancing it with work, making all of this happen. How has that worked for you? What advice would you have for everybody?
Sorry, let me take myself off of mute here. Returning to school was a huge commitment. And Patrick, I'm not sure if you remember, we had a conversation before I made that commitment, and I talked about not having enough time. I talked about my commute. You guys don't know, but I live in Baltimore. I work in DC. So for me, I don't really have a whole lot of spare time. And I really wasn't even sure that my family was going to be 100% supportive of me spending this time away. And so I had this conversation with Patrick, and, you know, honestly, he's so charismatic. It's really hard to not want to do that. But honestly, I did know that immediately after that conversation that this was the program for me. I think the biggest commitment was just trying to figure out how was I going to, you know, build in free time to do schoolwork when I'm already commuting. I've got a son, I've got, you know, home life, working full time. You know, how does this go? And I'll go back just a second. You know, I was saying that I worked for TSA, and I had a conversation when I was at a leadership certificate program through TSA with Dr. Zaplin, a faculty member of the program. And I had expressed interest with her that I really wanted to pursue my master's degree. It was very important to me, but, you know, I wasn't sure financially if we could handle it. I wasn't sure if I would get the support that I needed. And I remember her saying to me, if you really want this, you will find a way. And so, you know, fast forward to that call with Patrick, I got off the phone and I thought, okay, I got to go in there and I got to sell this to my family. And I did. And I was so excited about it and so enthusiastic that they kind of jumped on board. I will say it's quite a commitment, and you do have to really get creative. I was using technology to my advantage. You know, a lot of the books that we're reading, they're not textbooks, they're practical books that you might find advertised through like Harvard Business Review or Public Administration Review. So these are really just practical books. A lot of them are available for download. So I would download the audiobook and listen to it in the car on the way to pick up my son from school, or on my long commute, or even on the train. And, you know, sometimes even in the doctor's office, I just pull out the book. I've got 10 minutes, you know, we get a chapter in. So you get a little bit creative. I think the other thing too is that you have to figure out what your schedule looks like, what works for you. Writing is my strength. So I would have marathon writing sessions on the weekends, you know, kind of lock myself in the office and tell my family, I'll be out at dinner time. Just put it on Do Not Disturb. Don't bug me. But during the week, you know, I still would come home from work and I had my family time. So it was a nice balance. And I've had people ask me about social engagements and how was I able to find time to, you know, participate in family events and things like that. And my best advice is that, look, this is only 2 years of your life. It's not that serious. You've got the summer off in between. Well, you're not really off because you're doing your capstone work, but you've got time. This is really only 2 years of your life. This is so important. And when you get in here and you feel the excitement and you just, I mean, every single cohort member that you meet, whether it's past cohorts or your current cohort, it is this just buzz of excitement. You can't help but want to be here. You can't help but want to do this. So when people start seeing your excitement and how much you're learning, they're very supportive. So I think it's been a great balance. I still talk about, my experiences in the cohort. I still reflect back on that. I had an interview recently and I talked about being a values-based leader. And I look back and I just think, oh my goodness, I have come so far from 2 years ago. So it's been wonderful. And the balancing, honestly, it gets easier once you kind of get into the groove and you find your pace, your momentum.
Well, you definitely survived, Stephanie, without a doubt. And thank you so much for that. Christine, I want to go to you next. And I want to find out from you because you're currently, at least Stephanie has graduated and she's probably going to take a little pause on development work for a bit while she kind of catches her breath and continues to move on and up. But for you, you're in the middle of it now. I mean, right now you're in the middle of a top-ranked master's degree program. You're working. You've got all these things going on. What can you share with us?
Well, thanks, Patrick. And just to bounce off of Stephanie, I firmly believe that many things aren't equal in life, but everyone gets the same 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We make time for what we truly want. And if you think you don't have time for what you truly want, then you're spending time on something that, you can make time for it is all I'm saying. And Stephanie really did, just based on her story. And that's what I try to do too. Getting this MPA is a priority for me. It's part of my career change and my master plan of, ruling the world or taking over the world. So my current experience is I'm a year and half a semester in, and it's been life-changing for me. I don't recognize the person I was a year ago from today is completely different from who I am today. And that's all because of the KEY program. In the first semester, you do a lot of deep dive within yourself, and finding your purpose and values driven, just like Russell and Stephanie were saying. And finding your purpose, and rather than finding purpose in where you are, it's transitioned me into finding my purpose first, and then going out into the world and discovering where my purpose lies out there and where it fits in, or it's not even fitting in, it's where the world fits into my purpose. It sounds straight. I know it'll sound strange to many of you, but it's a huge transition. It's a big paradigm shift. But the KEY program, it's been instrumental in that. In addition to that, just the vehicle of this Capstone project, you've heard everyone talk about it at one point or the other, but the Capstone project it's essentially the dissertation of the MPA program. You don't do a dissertation, you do this Capstone where you're going into a real-time organization and you're meeting with people and solving a wicked problem. And so that Capstone project has been a vehicle for me in my journey. So as I said earlier, it's a career transition. I was a project manager, engineer, electrical engineering was my background, my undergrad. Right, Tony. And I hated it. I didn't realize it until I came here. But anyway, so in that career transition, I want to help the government serve society in the speed and at the in the way that society needs. That's my personal mission, and that's why I'm here. I also wanted to go to the VA and do work at the VA, and I never thought I'd be able to do that. But in this long journey, not a long journey, but it's only been like 4 months, but it seemed like an eternity. But through so much, because of this Capstone, I am now at the VA doing my Capstone there, even though I don't work there. In the journey of this, I've engaged with 25 to 30 different organizations to find this Capstone at the VA. And in the other part of what I want to do next is build my own consultancy, or be a consultant to the government in my mission, is essentially what it is. And I've started doing that, but with kind of freelancing to these nonprofits and some of the organizations that I encountered. And all these organizations that I encountered is through the powerful network at American University, the alumni. And like I talked to so many alumni, and it's through them that I am now at the VA, and I have all these touch points with all these different organizations. So yeah, the Key MPA program has been life-changing for me in just 1 year and a couple months. So I can't, from a work-life balance, I don't really have much to say about that. I think Stephanie pay attention to Stephanie. She has a great answer for that. But I can tell you that, and the other thing is you get out of it what you put in. If you put more, you can learn so much from this program. But you got to just put some time in. It's not time, it's more of just your thought process and seeing what you can get, what you want out of it, and making the most out of the resources that they provide for you. Did I cover the answer?
I think you did, Christine. That's awesome.
right.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
And you've heard, everyone has heard several references to Capstone. So for those of you that aren't familiar with what this is unlike other master's degree programs that do these large thesis papers and that kind of thing. Our approach in the Key MPA is that you do a project, basically what you're already working on. We find something preferably in your own agency that you're engaged in and working on, and we can fit within the framework of our Capstone experience, which happens every time. I mean, sometimes people will choose to go outside their organizations. Most of the time they stay within them. And we hope that they do, because one of the things that we want to be able to do is to make a difference in the public service through the men and women that come through our program. And in fact, a couple of years ago, the Key program won the World Institute for Action Learning Academic Institutional Award for Action Learning, because we have anywhere between 10 and 20 or so graduates every year that do these projects within their agencies, and it makes the agency better. And I hate to say it, actually I don't hate to say it, it's an often overused phrase, but it does instill culture change. It's a very unique approach. It's not our approach. It's something that's been around for a number of years, but it's one that's very unique and very special because it combines organizational problem solving with leadership development, which is what our job is as leaders. And as we become more senior, it's not our job so much anymore to solve the problems as it is to create the environment for people that work for us to solve the problems, which means the innovation and the creativity and the vulnerability that Russ mentioned. I mean, these are the things that have to happen. So that's the Capstone in a nutshell. With that said, let me, and thank you, Christine, very much. And I'd like to go back to Tony now, if I could. Tony, let's talk lasting impact. So you mentioned that you graduated, what is it, 12 years ago? 12 years ago.
Yeah, the end of 2007, we got our diplomas in December, and then walked in 2008.
And I'm going to tell you, for everyone on the line, and I hope I don't offend anyone by saying this, Tony is our #1 alum of all time because he never misses an event. And I'm going to tell you, we can always count on Tony to be in there, and likewise, and I think is Christine, and actually all of our speakers, so Christine, Steph, and Russ mentioned this. The networking is so important in advancement and in the federal service, and even getting into the federal service. I tell my traditional master's degree students, they're all worried about USA jobs. I'm like, you know what? Go through the process. But let me tell you right now, the way that you're going to get hired is you're going to come to an event that Key is hosting, and you're going to meet someone like Christine, or you're going to meet someone like Steph or Russ or Tony, and you're going to have a conversation with them, and you're going to get to know them, and they're going to get to know you. And the next thing that happens, they've got a GS 1113 opening up, and they're looking for someone. And guess what? Someone they've met that they know, you've got a lot better chance of landing that position than someone who's just coming in cold from the street. Networking. And I remember a couple of years ago, Russ yelling at me in my office and saying, Patrick, you keep forgetting to talk about the networking. It's one of the biggest parts of what this program does. We have 6,300 graduates of our program, 6,300 graduates of our programs, many of them running very senior positions, not only people that are on this call, but the director of this U.S. Secret Service and pretty much all of his senior staff are all graduates of the Key program. We've got this all over the government. So Tony, let me go back to you. So I want you to talk with us about the lasting impact. So it's been a few years since you've been applying things, you've been continuing to grow and learn. Tell us what that's been like.
Great. Thanks, Patrick. A little bit of segue from Christine. Again, I forgot to mention that kind of in the introduction, but the KEY program was a key pivotal point in my career because I did the same thing, somewhat intentionally, somewhat by happenstance. I graduated from the University of Maryland, a couple engineering degrees, and was loving it. Had about 12 years in the federal service as an engineer. Doing fire protection engineering, very much the same as distinguished alumnus Don Bathurst, Key 2. So again, someone who, again, senior executive with the Department of Homeland Security, someone who I, again, greatly admire and respect as a senior leader within the federal government. But I said, and Christine could probably appreciate, I said, okay, I'm an engineer. I can do the engineering stuff. And now I'm going to get into kind of commitment to public service. And what's that all about? And that's, I got a bunch of engineering degrees. I don't have any of those bachelor's of arts degrees or soft skills. And again, those are the things that my colleagues at the time recommended that the KEY program specifically for that. They said, listen, this is a program that will have not only an immediate impact, kind of one of the catchphrases that people kind of go around saying, but it holds true, and it held true every Monday is you will implement on Monday what you learned over the weekend. Many of the KEY program, County Executive Master's Program has a format where it meets all day Friday, all day Saturday, sometimes Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, or sometimes Saturday and Sunday. But again, that kind of became a moniker of, and was able to really live that on a day-to-day basis. After every weekend, we would go to a class and have a discussion about some topic. We were feeling proud and invincible, and much to what what Russell mentioned also in terms of a safe space. And again, with that feeling of invincibility, you said, all right, I'm gonna try this in my little safe group back at the office, and the KEY program really gave you a sense of how to do that. And so with that kind of 2-year really concentrated effort of seeing people every other weekend and working all the time and developing that cohort and really galvanizing those relationships with the university and the KEY program, and the university as well, they became enduring. That's the thing that I really have appreciated the most. So again, not only are there things that, like Patrick mentioned, I have shown up because, again, I appreciate the things that they have to offer. It gives you a little bit of like a booster shot of key leadership. They have connections to, getting back to the connection theme. Patrick, as he mentioned, people that he talks to, people that other people have talked to, over 6,000 graduates. Those individuals, many and most of them, come back on a regular basis to do either a Fed talk or present at some conference, either Women in Leadership Conference or the KEY program conference or the awards programs. Again, so for me, it's just kind of a slow trickle of just intellect and thought leadership and things that are just exceptional. And so again, those things like, participate either online or in person, and I'm able to take those kind of new thoughts and new nuggets from across the federal sector, both nonprofit and kind of federal employees, and bring those back. So that's really has been the thing that has been most exciting for me. Again, I've had the luxury of living and working in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. So those types of things of being in person and showing up and being present are a little bit easier for me. Again, I got a shorter commute living in the district up to the American University campus, but it's something that I figured if they are going to afford me that opportunity, I'm going to take full advantage of it. As I think several of the individuals mentioned, it was a huge investment at the time. It was one of those times where as was mentioned by Christine, you've got 24 hours in a day, and those 24 hours, looked in the mirror, they were full. But somehow we found a way to move the particles aside and inject the Key MPA program and the things that you wanted to put into it, and then get out of it. We were able to do that. And then, upon graduation, we were able to extract ourselves, and those molecules kind of came back together, using a bit of an engineering reference. And we are, I look at myself today, and my 24 hours is still busy. But it's ameliorated, for lack of a better term, too, by the things that Key has to offer. Again, not only, the 2 years that I spent, or we spent as a cohort 12 years ago, but I can go back to the well, and that well is runneth over. that well is never dry with ideas and opportunities and exchanges and connections. And that is something that is absolutely priceless. I mean, that is far over and above a return on the investment of both time and resources that I couldn't foresee. Right? Again, Key 32, again, 12 years ago, had a little bit to go off of the people at the time, but Patrick and his team and those before him, and again, those that have worked there and have gone on to bigger and better things, they continue to find ways, whether it be a COVID environment or otherwise, they can find ways to continue to up their game to be a world-class, award-winning program. Again, and that's something who would not want to be part of that type of environment. It is it's overwhelming, thrilling, exciting, and certainly fulfilling.
Well, thank you, Tony. You know, I would like to add one comment, and that is that, you know, people, I was being interviewed a couple of weeks ago about the program, and someone said, wow, Patrick, you must be very proud of your program. You guys develop all these wonderful leaders. And I said, you know, first of all, I kind of bristled when it was referred to as my program. You know, Tony mentioned the people that have come before, and we've got, you know, Bob Tobias, of course, our founder, Don Zotterer, and professors like Ruth Zaplin and Ruth Wagner, and you know, just the amazing men and women that teach in this program, our alums that are the real owners of this program. So I said, well, first of all, it's not my program. And secondly, I said, you know, I don't really know that we truly develop leadership. And I know we've got 30 plus people on the call right now. And they're probably like, what in the world are we on this call for if they don't develop leaders? And I said, I really don't. I think that we uncover the leader within. Now that I will own as something our program does well, is we uncover the leader within. And when I said that in this interview, I stopped and patted myself on the back and said, wow, that was really good. I got to write that down. And then I immediately sent it to Jennifer and our communications team. I said, hey, everyone, I said something really brilliant today. That doesn't happen often. Capture this moment. But it really is the journey. And it's allowing, you know, this program has never been about the faculty. It's never been about, you know, I often joke about programs that will bring in a lot of high price speakers. And those speakers are marvelous. And we can learn a lot about those speakers. I'm not sure that we can learn a lot from them, you know, because so much of what other people do, you know, think of big names, think of people like Colin Powell, who we all respect, you know, think of people like Condoleezza Rice. We all respect Condoleezza Rice. And I would love to hear them speak, and I would love to learn more about what their journey was, but I'm not so much sure how much of it is applicable to me, because I'm carrying my own biases, my own past, my own pain, my own joy. And so the program is very focused on the people in the program. It is truly owned by the cohort. And as a result, we have this amazing, and we were referred to one time as a cult by our accrediting body. And I took great pride in that. I said, yes, we are a cult. We're one step away from tattoos in this program. I just guarantee you, we're that close. So, you know, with that said, I want to thank the panelists. I also want to open up to any questions that anyone has for any of the group. I did see one comment here from Angie. Thank you about the networking. Speaking of networking and budgeting analysts, they're hiring one at the U.S. House of Reps. So by all means, thank you, Angie, for sharing that. And this is how it happens. I want to invite people, if they would like to chime in with a chat question, please do. I'm going to be right there monitoring this. And in the meantime, I do want to pose one quick question to our panelists, as well as we're kind of waiting for some questions to come in. You know, in this time of COVID, what have you all been doing to continue that networking and that growth? Any events or just ideas or thoughts that you might have? Russ, how about you? Anything that's kind of jumped out at you for networking in the last few months?
Yeah, so with our supervisors, we've really focused on wellness. Where I talk about meeting people where they are. So once we started off with, we've got staff who, besides workers, are now homeschool teachers, or with COVID, they have to check in on a loved one who may be in a vulnerable population. So first thing we said was, don't schedule a day full of meetings. Give people time to migrate in, migrate out from the work scenario. But then what we found was people were working until 9 or 10 at night. So we had to shut that down. One of the things we did was we did virtual 5Ks, whether you're walking or you're running, where we would all, a group would get together on Nike Runs app or Adidas Run app, and they do their thing on their own. Early in COVID, I don't have this problem because I got the shiny dome up top. But one of the ladies on our team, when the hair salons were closed, would always show up in meetings with baseball caps. So we did baseball cap day. Then we did rep your school day, rep your team day, virtual bake-offs. So there are a lot of things you can do that we did to bring that sense of community, bring that sense of like the cohort within the cohort. And personally, I got my undergrad degree from the University of Dayton. And me and a group of 15 brothers, some I hadn't seen in 30 years, we did a virtual Zoom every other Friday, which we still do. And we were like, this has been the best thing. So don't use technology as a limitation. Just really reach out to people, find out what motivates them, but then find ways you can do the activities as a work group, utilizing technology and apps to make things happen.
Thank you, Russ. Anybody else? Any other thoughts out there about that?
Patrick, this is Tony. I'm going to just double down kind of on what Russell said. Again, certainly in the beginning, there was the thought or a sense of, providing wellness allows individuals or kind of employees the flexibility to adjust their work hours, because again, we're not only are we now employees, but we're employees and we're school teachers and we're still, caregivers, and we take on a whole bunch of other roles that we didn't expect. But sometimes, that was, in some cases that may have been also, afforded at an extreme, where people were looking forward to a connection. Sometimes the management thought that, no, people just kind of want to be left alone to do their own thing. No, they're thirsty for connection. We are thirsting for connection. We are not thirsting for more time alone in the same four walls. We are thirsting for connection. And so we have found ways to do that. We have found ways to either virtually, and again, mostly virtually, but again, either found ways to do it video, audio, or other ways to connect. But again, those have been super helpful and you discover things about other individuals that you didn't particularly know before. But it gets back to some of the things that Russell talked about before, which is, a foundation of trust, where, if you're going to be vulnerable, that allows other people to kind of be vulnerable too. And again, I think that's something that this brought out is a greater sense of vulnerability.
Thank you, Tony. I do want to invite everyone as well to turn if you'd like to turn your cameras on so we can see you and say hello. I do see some familiar names out there. I see Mary out there, and I'm kind of scrolling through quickly to see some other folks that we might know. But does anybody have any questions they'd like to pose to anyone on the panel? Don't be afraid. They're bulletproof.
Hey, Patrick, so I want to, while questions are coming in, I think if you're looking for an MPA program, like definitely do your due diligence. Do your due diligence, check on certain schools. If you're going to stay in the public sector, if you're going to be in the federal government, that's where this program shines. So when I worked at NGA, and I struggled because my leadership didn't support me being in the program. And I remember one Thursday, I had it out with my CFO, and I won't say what I said, but she made it clear I need to be looking for a job.
Please don't.
And the next day I came to class, and during a break, I was cohort 43, and we shared it with that weekend with cohort 42. And I was talking to one of my classmates in cohort 42. And she was like, why are you doing this MPA? And I said, I just got to get out of finance. Like, if I stay in finance anymore, I'll die. And as we talked about what I wanted to do, she was like, you know what I do? And I said, you work for VA. She was like, I'm the director of HR for VA. I think I got a job for you. That was on Friday. I had a job offer the next Friday. No USA jobs, none of that. This is an amazing network. And what Patrick hasn't gotten to, the adjunct professors are SESs. So this isn't the killer academic. None of it relates to the real world. Everything you're dealing with in class relates to what you experience in the government. So that's my 2 cents, Patrick.
Thank you, Russ. And that is a good point. And this is applicable to any of our programs, not only our MPA, but our certificate programs as well. The people that teach for us are people like the assistant administrator at the Small Business Administration and the chief financial officer at Secret Service. And these are the folks that we bring in. They're living that life in the public service world. And even those that we have that teach for us that aren't actively engaged or employed by the federal government, they come with a lot of public service and nonprofit background, and that helps out a lot. I do see a question here I'd like to respond to from Tiffany. What tuition strategies are available? Tiffany, that's a great question. Here's something that we do that, to our knowledge, no other university does, is that if you work in the public service, you are eligible for a 25% discount off of tuition off of this very pricey degree. And I'm going to be completely transparent. It's a pricey degree. All master's degrees are. And this particular program, when you layer that 25% off, that's a huge plus. And that's something we feel very fortunate. The president of our university is Sylvia Burwell. And for those of you who don't know who Sylvia is, she ran Health and Human Services under the Obama administration. She also ran OMB. She was also at Department of Labor. Sylvia is a Fed, as was I, as is most the folks involved in our program. And Sylvia came in the university and said, we're not going to charge public service, anybody in public service, full tuition. We're giving them 25% off right from the get-go. And that has been terrific. And in fact, that we like to joke about when Sylvia came on board, she joined us in 2017, I think it was June 1st. And I started sucking up to her on May 31st, 2017, the day before she got here. But we're clearly her favorite program. We're a public administration executive master's degree. But so that's one thing, Tiffany, is the tuition is greatly reduced. Our tuition includes all books, all materials. There's no hidden costs. It's all one big package. We treat everyone in any of our key programs as senior leaders. We refer to all of you as executives, whether you're a senior executive or not. We refer to all of you as executives in leadership roles in your organizations. And so another thing we have a couple of scholarships that are available. The Don Zotter Scholarship, named after our founder, and Anita Alpern, who was one of the first most senior woman in the federal government. She was on our faculty a number of years ago. They've both since passed away, sadly, but we do have scholarships for named after both of them that we award every summer. We also typically have around usually 4 or sometimes more graduate scholarships that are in the thousands of dollar range that we are able to offer to incoming students when they come in. So there's a lot of opportunities out there. I don't want to gloss over the cost. It's pricey, it's expensive. One thing I can say though, is that no one who has ever come to this program has ever come to me, and we've had some very mouthy cohorts and let me know everything we did right and everything we can do better. There's no doubt about it, but no one has ever said to me, it wasn't worth it. What am I paying for? I've never heard that. And that's something that we're quite proud of. So Tiffany, I hope that answers your question. Any other questions out there that we can answer?
Hey, Patrick, I can add on to Tiffany's question real quick too. If your agency or your organization offers tuition reimbursement or tuition assistance or any type of training money available to you, the financial aid department with American University will work with you. My agency actually did contribute towards some of my classes. So don't forget about that as well. Every little bit helps.
Tiffany, to double down on what Patrick and Stephanie said, the other thing that's unique about it that it kind of is super helpful is while it's 2 years or kind of 18 months, it is spread across 3 fiscal years of the federal government. So there's the opportunity to pay for the first semester. If it starts in September, there's an opportunity to pay for the first semester with 1 fiscal year's amount of money. The next semesters with the kind of the middle fiscal years, and then the last semesters or so with a 3rd fiscal years. So there's an opportunity for your organization to spread those costs out. Again, the financial aid office is super helpful in kind of working that out, but it's not something that needs to be paid all up front. It can be spread across 3 fiscal years. And again, I had the extreme benefit of having my agency pay for that. And they found great benefit in spreading that across 3 fiscal years.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tony. I think, Christine, did you have something you wanted to add as well?
Not regarding tuition and finances, but I did want to bring up that executive coaching that the key program, the MPA.
I knew I forgot something.
It's been that's been part of the life-changing aspect for me, the executive coaching, and talking to the other members of my cohort, they are very happy with their executive coaching sessions too. And part of that is the 360-degree evaluation that is done. So if you want to talk about that a little bit, but yeah, the executive coach, you get an executive coach with the MPA program, and that's part of the deal. So just want to bring
Thank you, Christine. You know, I completely forgot about that. We just started doing that, and it was something we had pitched to our dean, to Vicki Wilkins. We thought that the executive coaches could really help these leaders who were balancing a lot of things in their lives, whether it be, you know, school and family, or school and just personal, everything. We knew that this would be something that would help and keep them focused and help them, you know, provide a service. And that is provided as part of the tuition. We're very proud of that. And it's just so new. I just absolutely forgot about it. But thanks, Christine, for bringing that up. I did see a question here from Karen. Hey, Karen, good to see your name down there. I wanted to ask, I know, Tony, you went, and I think as well, Steph, you went to Brussels, yes? Steph, tell us a bit about Brussels. What was that? And Tony, if you can chime in as well.
Brussels was amazing. You really got to meet so many individuals from the European Union, and we actually went to NATO as well. So we were able to meet members there. Just comparing the EU government with the United States government and how they do business and all the intricacies and understanding all the differences. I'm not going to say that I came back to work and I, you know, immediately was thinking like, oh, well, this is how the EU does it. But just from perspective, just understanding how the rest of the world functions was huge. And I mean, it's impossible for me to even just, you know, try to remember all the different groups of people that we talked to, but it was spread out. I mean, the Key program did an awesome job at really trying to get us an opportunity to talk to so many different people from so many areas across the European Union. And all of these individuals were extremely personable. It was just like talking to like you guys. I mean, we really could talk on a one-on-one basis. You could ask questions. They were extremely excited for us to be there. I think Key has a great relationship with whoever coordinates that. And actually there was a professor, and I'm really drawing a blank now, but I think he was instrumental in making that connection. And his information was awesome as well. He, I think, works at American. Patrick can talk about it a little bit better. Works at American, but also has lived in Brussels for a long time. So his presentation was just phenomenal. Very, very interesting. Not dry at all.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. This trip, by the way, is an optional trip that pretty much everyone chooses to go on. And Christine, we're going to do this next year. Unfortunately, for our current cohort, it didn't happen. But it really was. And Jerry Sheridan is the professor. He's an American University professor from the School of International Service who lives in Brussels. He's a Brussels citizen. He speaks Flemish, he speaks French, and he speaks English. And he's pretty much grown up there professionally. And he had this idea years ago, this vision of a program where we would bring federal leaders over, you know, public service leaders, nonprofit leaders over to Europe and talk to these folks. And it was amazing. Tony, how about you? Were you too busy watching European football, or did you actually attend? Yeah, I knew it.
That is precisely what I was going to say. It was the kickoff of the World Cup. I have no idea what else happened other than sitting in the square right outside the Marriott in downtown Brussels and just hooping and hollering at the results of the World Cup.
Awesome.
But said differently, again, this was most of the first year, but first or second year that they offered it. Again, it was voluntary. One of the things that I took advantage of to be able to go on this trip was, again, it was part of the curriculum, but I was as an alumnus, and one of the benefits as an alumnus is $100, so a nominal fee to audit any class at American University. And so that is, again, you know, when you have a couple degrees, or even if you have one degree, you're not in it for a grade, but you're in it for the educational experience. I said, you know what, for $100 and, you know, an airline ticket, and this is awesome. And it was, so it was really a great group. It took individuals that were in the traditional MPA program. So, 22-year-olds that had gone from undergraduate to graduate. It took people that were in the Key program, and then myself as an alumnus, might have one or two certificate program individuals. And it was amazing. Again, it was on the heels of having lived in Europe myself for several years. So was fairly familiar with some of the activities, but it was a really great bonding experience. One not to be passed up. As was already mentioned, by Stephanie, it wasn't like, okay, we are now going to start a movement to turn us into the European Union when we got back. Not hardly, but it certainly affirmed some of the things that were in place in our federal system, and certainly give us an impact and kind of an insight into if we are going, for some of our organizations. Again, I work for the Department of Navy, who has a NATO footprint. And so it was certainly helpful to see how our NATO allies and partner countries, how their governance works. It was super helpful from that perspective.
Yeah, Russ.
Yeah, so I went in 2012. I was cohort 43, so we merged with cohort 42. So we actually formed a different cohort within a cohort and made great friendships. I think the biggest thing I got out of the trip, and in addition to NATO and European Union, Mr. Sheridan set up time for us to tour the Belgian government. But I think the biggest thing I got out of it was civil servants are civil servants.
Yeah, amen to that.
Over there, I remember one guy who was saying he was Danish and he was taught to challenge authority, and his boss was French, where you respect authority, and that was the source of their tension all the time. So at the end of the day, I'm looking at it like, okay, it may not be like if you're at an agency where there's a law enforcement component, and then you've got the law enforcement and the non-law enforcement and their tension, but these are people they're public service. They're dealing with the same things we are. It's just a little different, but it's also a lot the same.
So what I was going to say is, based on what Tony was just saying, for the people on the call, when you're looking at your programs out there, the traditional versus the executive programs, you want to look at programs that have your peers, your colleagues are on the same page with you. I started at AU in the traditional program, and I found that all of my classmates were 22-year-olds just out of undergrad, and they were just there for the grade. Now in the Key program, one of the selling points that I talked to Patrick, and now I'm in the executive program, one of the selling points is that my classmates are all career professionals in the government. And then that also adds to the networking. But it's just your experience within the classrooms are very different when you have peers who have years of experience in the government and know what they're talking about, and has very diverse dialogues and conversations versus 22-year-olds who have no idea what they're doing. So keep that in mind when you're looking for your MPA programs or MBA programs. Also keep in mind what you want to do in the future. I know we have short on time, so thank you very much, everybody. I really enjoyed this.
Christine, thank you. That was a great point. I want to say thank you as well to Lamont and to Bree and Jennifer, who make these kind of events happen for us, and they're so seamless. And thank you especially to Russ and to Steph and Christine and Tony. Love you guys. It's great to see you all again. I hope everyone's doing well, and please do stay in touch. For everybody else, thank you all for being here, and thanks for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.